Hello everyone and welcome to a special video that we're gonna call Making the Box. Today I'm gonna show you the logic behind sending Flynn into the grid, which is a toy box that you saw earlier today. And I did a playthrough of it, but this time I'm gonna show you around on how was the process of making it. We start off here in blocks with the texture of Tron. Remember that pressing triangle here or that little paint icon you see there. You can select your style of how you want the blocks. I created this entire rectangle structure using those blocks. So why did I make the player spawn in here and not over here? This decision was made so that I want to make sure the sky changes and the cameras activate properly, because if I use a level starter, sometimes it can work, sometimes it can have some issues. It's a bit tricky and I prefer not to use it, but if you like to use it, well, it's okay. I think every Toybox artist has their own style. So the first thing you're gonna notice, there's no Tron sky. The cutscene starts off with the Spider-Man Sky Dome, which is a power disc, and then it switches to the Tron Legacy Sky, which is also a power disc. This is, as you can see, I'm gonna display you right now here, the power disc that I'm talking about. So what's connected to this trigger area? One of the first things connected to this trigger area is the Toybox Game Maker. With the Toybox Game Maker, I can set the properties of what I want people to use in the Toybox. In other words, what difficulty do I want them to play the enemies? If I want them to be able to edit the Toybox or not? Do I want them to use flyers or not? What type of characters are allowed? Do I want to block villains? There's so many options in how you can control how people play your Toybox. Always make sure you set that up at the very beginning of the toy box. So for example, it's set to this trigger area, so when the player enters that trigger area, the Toybox Game Maker will go on. So that way, if they're using the incorrect character, they can still change quickly the character here before starting the action of the whole toy box and not make it last minute change later on. The other thing that's activated here is the Sky Changer. So why the Sky Changer, you mean? It's set to this Spider-Man Sky Changer. The thing is, when I save this toy box, I place in the Tron Legacy Sky, so that when you load into the box, you'll see the loading is the Tron Legacy Sky. But when you're going to go into the cutscene, you can see the city, so that it then transitions to the Tron Legacy Sky and create the transition that I really want for it. So now, let's talk about this trigger button here. This trigger button activates the action of the whole toy box, basically the cutscenes that will transition later on to take you to the gameplay. In this particular case, I'm activating target camera and a path creator. My toy box begins with a cutscene. This is the camera of that cutscene and is connected to this path. The camera will go along all this path and then it will switch to this camera. Sounds simple, but it can be a little bit more difficult than that. You can connect this camera to a locator, to an actor, or to a player. But when using them on paths, I strongly recommend you use an actor. What is an actor? Well, an actor can be a vehicle or a townsperson. In this case, I'm using a Hawkeye townsperson. He's not going to be on screen. He functions like a locator. But you might say, why not use a locator instead? Sometimes using cameras with locators on a path can make the camera be shaky during the path. So in order to make sure that doesn't happen, you can use an actor instead. So I'm gonna do a brand new camera to show you a bit of those connections. You're gonna go here to the camera, you'll say new actor connection, and you'll go to your actor right over here. You want it to be Hawkeye, you connect camera target. So the camera will always be facing wherever the actor is. But you cannot just connect the actor and that's it, and call it a day. You have to go to camera properties and set it up. So in here you'll go to camera type. Do you want it to follow the actor? No, in this case you just want the camera not to perform any action, because the action will be performed by the path. You're gonna deactivate the glow through. This is so objects that are distant mostly actors or characters are distant can be seen glowing. I tend to not put it on. I always leave it off unless the camera is focused on a player. If the camera is focused on a player, then I put it on. But in this case, that's not it. Now here's the most important part, is camera target. If you have your camera connected to a locator, you're gonna click connected locator. If you have it set to an actor, which is our case here, you're gonna press connected actor. And there you go. That camera is now set up. And you can use a time duration. If you want to specifically say the camera lasts 5 seconds, you can do that, or you can make some other logic deactivate and activate the camera. So another thing that I almost forgot to say is the transition. If you really want a more cinematic experience, I tend to put a fade transition for the very first camera of a cutscene, so it can transition smoothly. The fade, what it does is create a black screen transition to the camera, rather than jump straight to the camera. It really depends again in the style of action that you're going to use the camera for. Something else here, we have the text creator. Text creator is simple, but I'm gonna go over it quickly to show you. You go here, new logic connection. When activated, you'll select display text 1. That logic is already set up, but here it is, display text 1. So in this text, you're just gonna put the text that you want to put. You decide the style, if you want it to be on the bottom, on the top. Proposal and confirmation, we'll talk about that later on. And if you want more text to appear, then you're gonna activate auto display next valid line, and you're gonna set up the seconds that text will last. So if you have the first text set to 7 seconds, when those 7 seconds happen, then the second text is gonna pop up and it's gonna last 7 seconds as well. So deactivating and activating the camera. This camera, I have it set up so that it deactivates with time. However, if I deactivate a camera to activate another one, it may not create the best transition, or it cannot even work properly. So in this case, in which we have the camera set on a path, and I want the camera to deactivate as long as it's moving and not deactivate right when it stops, I will use this path point. I want the camera to deactivate when it reaches this point rather than when the camera stops moving. So what I do here is I press here, I'll go target camera, and that camera reaches that path point is going to activate the second camera. So that activates the second camera, and since this other camera is also on a path, I also put that when that point is reached by our first camera is gonna activate the path. Activating the path, I always recommend that you use the logic called reset and play, especially with cameras, because maybe you tested something and the path is not on its place, or something spawned not close to the path. Always make sure you do reset and play. Like I was mentioning, this trigger button activates the camera, but also activates the path. And like I said, make sure it's set to reset and play, because in case you tested the camera and you didn't reset it before or something, it's always good to have it in reset and play to make sure it works like it's supposed to be. So now we're going to talk about activating this camera. The best way to activate the camera is using this path point. So why shouldn't you activate or deactivate this camera with this one? Because it's not really smooth. Like I said, remember always to put a camera activate on top of the other by using another logic that activates it. You could put for example, in this case I use the path point. In other cases you can use text to activate the next camera instead. The point is, do not make this camera deactivate and immediately as it deactivates, activate this one, because it's not gonna work out so well. Anyway, once you activate that camera with that path point, it's gonna go all the way through down here, and again, before it finishes, I set the next camera to activate here. But before we move on to the third camera, make sure this camera deactivates. In this case, I have it with a time duration, so at some point it's gonna deactivate, because remember, we are activating this camera while this one was already activated. So if you don't deactivate later on this one, when this one deactivates, this one will still be showing up later on. So always make sure that as soon as the next camera activates, make sure the previous one deactivates seconds later by any kind of logic you want to use along the long run, using the time, or you can set it up so that when the camera reaches this spot it deactivates, because by the time it reaches that spot this camera has been already activated. It's ultimately your style and your decision. In this case here I use a locator for the camera because this is actually more of the look of this item. It's not this item, it's the Tron Legacy one. I'm gonna put it up later for you to see it better. But yeah, I always recommend to keep things fresh, like don't stick to just one type of camera style. Like sometimes focus on a vehicle, has an actor, you can put a locator. Try not to repeat two locator cameras, it can also give you trouble. It's not always, but it's just this is some hints of what possibly could happen wrong in your toy box. Maybe right now you're suffering through that, and maybe you're using two locator cameras at the same time. So I have placed down the Tron Legacy Skydome so you can see it, what I'm talking about. Once that path point that I told you about is reached by the camera, this camera will be activated along with its path. When this camera activates, it's going to activate a text, as you can see over there. You probably already know the basics of text. This camera is also set up with an actor. Here you can see the connected actor. You can also try using a locator, but I decided to use an actor here instead for better performance of the movement of the camera. But sometimes it doesn't really give you trouble. You can try all the variations, just be sure to always test it out multiple times. And here is gonna be the recognizer vehicle, which again, set by reset and play, same for the camera, will move along this path. Also, when that path point over there that I show you is reached by the camera, you will be transported here, the player, on this checkpoint. You just simply put path point, reach by object on path, teleport player to this checkpoint. Why do I teleport you here? I teleport you here so that you don't run out of the toy box walking around like crazy, activating the cameras by accident multiple times or something like that, and to make you be part of the cutscene while also keeping you under control with this invisible barrier. You can react to the cutscene a little bit, but you cannot get out of it. Just making you feel part of the action. Now, why do I have this trigger area here? Well, it's simple, because the cutscene that follows is actually not a cutscene. It's not with a camera. You're in control of the next part. But teleporting a player to another checkpoint takes around 3 to 5 seconds. So by the time the camera deactivates, you will not appear just yet in the other side. So the camera deactivates by a specific amount of time, because it's a timed camera. But before it deactivates, the vehicle is going to reach this trigger area, and it will teleport you, the player, to the next area. Again, this is all very much timed. You can also do this with text and other logic. In this particular case, I went with a lot of timing. Everything I time it precisely to make very smooth transitions of the cutscenes. Again, this takes a lot of trial and error testing over and over to make sure everything's timed well. But what you need to know is that what I use here in this case is when the vehicle reaches this trigger area, it will teleport the player over there. And those 3 or 5 seconds you got in there because you put this trigger area will leave enough time for the camera to deactivate smoothly, and you'll see your next area activate exactly on the same time. So let's talk a little bit about the pieces in here. This is right here, Tron Legacy terrain. This is from Tron Legacy Power Disc terrain. It's not called like that, but I'm gonna be posting a picture right now on the video, you'll see it. These pieces are also part of that. This piece in particular is from the regular Tron movie. These are part of the game for free, and these mountains are part of terrain pieces, also for free in the game, and they're themed to the Death Star terrain. And the Death Star terrain personally is better than this Tron Legacy terrain because this one has too many lines. This one is a bit more formal, and I'm gonna show you later in the other parts of the toy box how it looks better overall for the Tron Legacy team, and it's completely free and available in the game. And the great thing about this Death Star terrain is that you can team it to different skies, and it changes depending on the color of the sky. In this case, since this sky is predominantly a bit of a turquoise, bluish green color, it becomes like that. But if you were in a sky that's all blue, this turns super blue. And if it's a lava place, it's gonna go very orangey red. It really is great if you really want to make the lighting of the skydome stand out. So let's go to this particular area over here, which I like to call the fancy elevator area. So here in the fancy elevator area, I put a lot of animation pieces. They are also part of the game. You don't need to buy anything. So in this scene, I do the scene where the sirens receive Sam Flynn. These sirens, in this case, these girls over here are characters from the Guardians of the Galaxy playset. They're unlockable if you have the playset, or you have to spend a certain amount of sparks, from what I understand. The path point logic of it, I'll explain in a little bit. When that vehicle camera that I showed you earlier of the recognizer deactivates and you got teleported, you'll be teleported here. Remember that you'll be teleported first before the camera deactivates, but you won't notice as it's done timely, so it moves smoothly. So as soon as you arrive at this checkpoint, which is invisible, you will activate this trigger area. When this trigger area activates, it will set the checkpoint. Now why doesn't the checkpoint get set when you just step in the checkpoint? Because the checkpoint is hidden. If the checkpoint is hidden, you have to make the checkpoint be set by the trigger area or another logic. So I have it set up so that when this checkpoint is set, it will activate the path that's right on the floor, and it'll make the path go down as an elevator smoothly. And this is a basic floor, nothing fancy about it either. Invisible barrier. Why did I put an invisible barrier here? I wanted to make sure the player firstly activates the checkpoint, and secondly doesn't run away from the elevator. I wanted the experience to feel like it's a cutscene, like it's a camera, but it's not really a logic camera, but the game is transporting you in a way that feels like a camera. When this floor reaches the bottom, which is this path point below this locator, these sirens will go in reset and play, and they will walk straight to you right here. When the siren, one of the sirens arrives, let's see which one I have set up. When this particular siren arrives to this path point, it will activate the text, which is a text proposal. That is right here. Now why did I choose a text proposal? Because I wanted to make sure the player reads the text, so it can only be skipped to the next text by pressing X. But even though you have that control, you can still put auto display next valid line on, so you don't have to go and put a ton of text creators per line. So as soon as you skip this one by pressing X button, in this case on PS4, you go to the next one and the next one. But I want something to happen when the third text has been skipped. So I go to specific line dismiss and go text line 3. When that text line is dismissed, it will activate this item generator. So what is this object generator? Well, the object generator is so you can make the player have a specific tool to use in Toy Box. So say you want the player to use a lightsaber, you put it on here, or if you want the player to make sure it has a Tron disc, in this case, then you use the object generator. So I'm going to use some random connection here, say any text display, and this is the menu you're gonna get. Here's the menu. You can use packs, volunteers check packs, or TNT, anything. And you can set it up as a locator, which is a locator set right here. So when that specific line text number 3 is dismissed, the Tron disc will appear right there. Sometimes some players move around the floor and miss the disc. It's not really important. I just wanted to make it part of the cutscene because in the scene in the movie they do give you the disc. After this we go to a camera. How do we do that? Well, we just go to the text. Once the last line of the text is dismissed, we go to the camera right here, and also in this case the path tool. Remember to reset and play the path tool so that camera moves in smoothly at the same time as it's activated. And in this case the camera is set up as a top down. It looks like it's gonna look over there, but it's not because it has a locator down below. So the camera is actually gonna go like this because the locator of the camera is right here. When this camera is activated, it also has some text that will activate, but you already know the basics of text, hopefully by now. Here are some locators. What do these locators do? They have an effect, which should be right here. Here are the effects of those particular locators. I have it set to, I believe, let's see here, is set to play looped, flashes, teleportation cone, because the teleportation cone has the Tron Legacy coloring. And there's also smoke effects right here. And activating this is very simple. You just simply connect two locators where you want the effect to pop up. You can connect multiple locators, and you just simply set so when the camera activates, it will play a specific effect. If you want the effect to be once, you just do it once, and if you want the effect to be constant, you just press play looped. Very simple logic on that. Oh, one little tidbit here is the world loader tool. This one's very simple logic too. Here you decide how you want the loading screen to appear, or if you want to turn it off, or how you want it to move. But basically, when you place this world loader, it becomes the location of your loading screen. It has nothing to do really with your gameplay of your toy box. It's simply for your loading screen. And I like this particular area to load because the look of the stadium is pretty fun to see how it gets built in the loading screen. Decorations wise, this is also Nomation pieces. These are blocks. They're set to hologram texture. The star terrain textures on these terrain pieces mixed with the old classic Tron look design piece texture. And we also have these, which are called rails. These rails are supposed to be you getting on top of them and sliding down through the rail, but in this case I'm using them to decorate. The particular look they have right now is the Avengers rail because they have that loose style, but yes, you can totally change the style of the rails as well. So that's the end of our first part of this tutorial. I was simply talking all about the cinematics of the toy box. The second part, we're gonna talk completely about the whole gameplay and review quickly the cutscenes when there's more cameras along the way. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions of something that you didn't understand in this video or that you want me to explain more, let me know in the comments and I'll talk to you.